Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on making the most of your legal education, guide to choosing the right practice area. I'm Manaswini Mishra, and I'll be your moderator for the session. There are many factors to consider, such as your interests, skills, and values when choosing the right practice area. So, in this session, we have our law firm members to share their insights and help you make an informed choice. So let's begin by introducing our speakers. Joining us today, Mathews. He has 15 years of practice in intellectual property. He's the practice head at Fox Mandal Associates, Delhi office. Moving on, we have Padma Sinha. She has been working for 13 years. She's currently the group head at our Bangalore office, and she heads the TMT practice. We have Dipti Das with us from our Mumbai office. She has 20 years of practice. She is currently a practice head in the dispute resolution team. We also have Jayeeta Sengupta. She has 14 years of practice. She is the group head for employment law in our Kolkata office. So, Mathews, could you just let us know a little more about your practice area? What was in intellectual property practice that intrigued you?
Yeah, thank you, Manaswini. So, interestingly, obviously, I fixed my area of interest depending on my internships, like pretty much most of the law students out there today, right? I understood that tax was definitely not for me due to my amazing math skill, which wasn't too much to be talked about. And then moving forward, I experienced other areas of law during my internships, during my 5 years of law college. During that time, I understood that IP was maybe an area that I wanted to kind of explore a little bit more. So from my first internship, I went on to do 2 more in that same area. By my second internship, I was quite sure that yes, this is the area of law that I have a passion for. I use the words passion for because this is a profession which would entail a lot of work. And if I did not have a passion for something that I wanted to do, I wouldn't enjoy doing it. And by the end of my 5th year, I kind of was quite sure that this is exactly the area of law that I wanted to do. Now, IP, we're talking about something that happened 15 years ago, right? So IP at that particular point of time was still in India, a growing sphere of law. To give you an example, in my batch, there may have been 3 to 4 people out of a batch of 200 plus students who took up IP as a profession at that particular point of time. But today, if you look at the number of students who have taken intellectual property as their practice area, you would find that the numbers have substantially increased. Therefore, from what it was 15 years ago to what it is now, there's been a substantial change in this particular area, clearly showing not only interest from students, but also interest from the sector as a whole, from companies, from business houses, etc., who want to develop their intellectual property. So I guess this is in a crux exactly how I took IP, and the rest of that guesses for everyone else to elaborate.
Yeah, so basically you want to say that internships do help in deciding which practice area one ultimately chooses.
Surely it does.
Yeah. Padma, how about you? How did you come about taking up TMT law?
Yeah, so when I started TMT law, technology law wasn't a thing. Technology was at a very nascent stage. I started as a corporate lawyer. Gradually, technology creeped in. And you know how it is. Advancement in technology now is absolutely inevitable. So I was always interested in the advancement in technology, following how technology moves. And the pace at which technology we see is now developing, it's absolutely unparalleled. What we need at this moment is the need to ensure that the pace in which technology is moving has matching legal safeguards. Because the pace is very fast, but the legal safeguards are coming very slowly, very gradually. So I wanted to be part of this history. It's a non-traditional area. So I wanted to be part of this history in giving the legal safeguards, legal shield for technological advancements. Now what we see is a very high level of technological advancements like artificial intelligence, etc., in a robotic or different kind of level. But it would gradually creep into our regular lives, in our everyday lives. So legal safeguards become very important at that stage. So this is now developing not only in India, in all areas, in all countries, in all jurisdictions. It's improving, it's developing gradually. As and when technology improves, we get to see the nuances and we get to, formulate the law around it. So that's where I wanted to be and know how the technology advancement and the legal advancement in technology is happening, and wanted to be a technology lawyer.
Okay. Good to know. Dipti, how about you?
Hi. So I believe when I graduated, I didn't have too many choices actually, and that time in that period it was only commerce, science, and arts. So I graduated in commerce, and generally people do CA or CS after completing commerce, and I always thought that CA examinations and CS examinations are based on lottery system, and I never had that knack to do it, though I was very good in accounts, but then I never thought of doing it. So I feel during that time, if you have no other option, law was the only option available, and therefore I took up law. And dispute resolution was also, that time was to go for it. People didn't really respect so much of non-lit. So dispute resolution, at that time it was more known as litigation. And so I, of course, enrolled myself in law, and then I did the internship right from the first year. And the person who was mentoring me, he had made it sure as to how my path should be. So I did 3 years of law college, and I started right from my first year to do the dispute resolution. So I have been practicing dispute resolution, if I may say so, from the first year of my law college.
Nice, nice. But you would say the role of a mentor is very important in the legal profession.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel one should have the guidance and the mentor. So during my period, there was no mentor internship as such from the college. It was only on our own, where we used to get the internship only with references. So I got those internships through reference, and that helped me a lot. So definitely, if you have somebody to guide you, it will make your path easier. So that had helped me a lot. As to, if I can just add 2-3 more things in this. So first year he put me in a law firm where I could learn how the law firm works and how the procedures are, or how a solicitor firm works, because at that time there were more of solicitor firms. Then in my second year and third year, he put me with an individual lawyer where I could learn the nuances of how court works, how the department works, how to appear in court. So during my internship days, I was learning all these things, which eventually developed my interest, and I realized that this is what I want to do. And I continued, and then after graduating in law, I continued with dispute resolution. So yes, guidance is very, very important.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Jayeeta, how about you? How did you come about working as an employment lawyer?
So my story is somewhat similar to what Dipti had mentioned. So I started off with real estate, and then gradually I got into consumer litigation, and then Mr. Kaustav Chander, he came to the Calcutta office. So like Dipti had mentioned, that the mentor plays such a huge role in your career. So then gradually, I got involved in labor laws and employment laws. And before that, also Mr. Sumit, who's now a partner, he was also, handling the labor law division of this office. So it was through this evolution of so many years that I got into this. And I'm enjoying it because, as you know, the workforce is probably the most important asset of a company. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice to know. Jayeeta, what kind of work do you handle in your day-to-day basis? What are the kind of work that practitioners should expect once they're part of an employment law team?
Right. So like any division, you have the non-lit and the litigation aspect. So in the non-lit, you've got assignments such as drafting and vetting of various employment contracts. And that starts from the lowest employee category, and it goes till the managing directors, and they could be foreign, they could be Indian. So then you have a lot of Companies Act provisions which you'll have to induct into your contract employment letter. So apart from that, we get lots of cases like there's trouble in the factories with the unions and how to resolve those issues. Then you also have the providing of opinions and memorandums on certain issues, like if you want to terminate an employee, how do you go about it so that there's no litigation, there's no future litigation against you. And then, of course, there's the litigation aspect where, suppose if a disgruntled employee is not happy with the compensation which was given at the time of his termination, or for whatever reason, he approaches the court and then you fight it out. So we act sometimes for the employees as well as the employers.
Okay. Padma, how about you? What do you work with on a regular basis as a TMT lawyer? What kind of matters do you deal in?
Yeah. Right. So, as I was mentioning, it's still emerging. We don't have a lot of legal legislation in place as yet, especially in India. We know the digital bill, the personal data protection bill, all of these are still under discussion. So, a lot of clients come with lots of, and this is a new area, and a lot of clients are starting new also. So they come with seeking for advice mostly on what is the most feasible and the most compliant way to go about their business. So as a lawyer, you have to bear in mind the law as well as their business and give them the rightful advice and the most feasible thing to do in terms of their business and ensuring that the business will be compliant as well. So a lot of it depends on a lot of research, and more often than not we don't find right answers or very straightforward answers. So then that influences a lot of interpretation of the law also. Sometimes we have to approach the departments also to get some sort of clarification. So mostly all of these I would bring them in the basket of opinion. So we do give a lot of advice and opinion. A major part of our work includes commercial contracts. So technology law, when I say, it includes all kind of commercial contracts related to technology. It can be cloud computing agreement, it can be SaaS agreement, it can be software licensing agreement, any kind of commercial contracts that relates to technology. Now, when I say technology law, there's no one, like say criminal law, which includes CRPC, IPC. There's no one law for technology law, right? It includes bits and pieces of IP also. It includes bits and pieces of commercial contracts. Now, if we are advising an e-commerce entity, it includes Consumer Protection Act also. It includes e-commerce rules. So it's like all encompassing it. So our area of work mostly includes advice and opinion and commercial contracts, dealing with different kinds of commercial contracts.
Okay. All right. Mathews, how about you? What work does an IP lawyer get?
So an IP lawyer generally has quite an interesting amount of work. I use the word interesting again because you have to understand what IP is all about, right? Many people ask me what I do, and I tell many people that I protect stories. So I get this very awkward silence right after I say that. And it's because I actually do protect stories. I protect the stories of brands, their history, how they started, the founders' sweat and toil, the labor which they put in. So every brand, including Fox Noodle, has a legacy and a story behind it. There isn't one which out there which does not have it. So as an IP lawyer, technically, you are protecting those stories of those founders of those companies. You're looking at problems on a day-to-day basis and giving solutions from a commercial standpoint, both contentious and non-contentious in nature. So you could at any given point of time be dealing with certain gray areas as well. Padma touched upon it when she was mentioning about TMT practice. So there is gray areas within IP law as well, wherein it could go either way. Subjectivity does play a small part in it as well, because there are certain areas of the law which aren't as developed as one would like it to be. So, and that's the exciting part, because that's where you basically, as a lawyer, try to find solutions for a problem your client might be encountering. So on a day-to-day basis, you are going to have to apply a lot of what you learned in theory on a practical basis and come up with a solution which is commercial in nature, because intellectual property to a company at the end of the day is an asset, a commercial asset. They have a problem. The solution has to be commercial in nature. It cannot just be a legal solution. The legal solution has to work in consonance with the business. It cannot stand by itself. So on a day-to-day basis, an IP lawyer will face these kind of issues, and that is what, on a day-to-day basis we do for a living.
Okay. Also, IP has subdivisions, patent, trademark, copyright. So does one, when he or she starts practicing, can dabble into all of them, or is it always better to focus on just one of them?
At the start of your career, you really should explore all of these areas of law, because I think everybody can vouch for the fact that you need to have good expertise in all of it.
Okay.
Because later on in your career, you're going to have to develop your soft skills on business development, approaching a client, speaking to them. So there could be a situation which they would ask you on an area of law you may not be practicing daily. So if I'm not practicing patents daily, that's fine. But at least I need to have good amount of exposure and idea as to what a patent is, how is it filed, and so on and so forth. So don't limit yourself to just one area. I think that would be very wrong. Explore as much as possible all four areas of IP law as much as possible. There are two more actually, but as much as possible, explore the four that you've actually mentioned right now.
So for patent, isn't an additional kind of a degree or a technical capability required?
You're correct. For practice of patent law, you do need technical expertise. Basically, you need to have a science background. If you're not a lawyer, you can apply for and pass your patent agent exam. If you are a lawyer, then you can get a patent agent number automatically.
Okay.
However, understand that this one area of law, which is patents, is very, very technical in nature. There could be an engineer who might know engineering, but he might not be able to decipher a patent in respect of biotechnology. It's as vast as that.
Okay.
So technical expertise to understand what the inventor is trying to tell you, what the specification entails, what is it that is being explained to you, matters a lot in that area of law. So we often find that there are subject matter experts which are brought in for this particular area, even in courts, to a large extent.
All right. How would you say your work looks like on a daily basis?
Yeah, so after hearing Jayeeta, Mathews, Padma, I would make one statement that dispute resolution is the backbone of the entire legal system.
Absolutely.
So after all the advices and all whatever has been taken care in contract, if there is any dispute which has arisen between the parties, it comes to dispute resolution. So my day-to-day is going to courts, which is very, very exciting, I must say, that you visit court, hear the matters, what is the strategy one needs to adopt, what is the law in place, looking at the documents, what has transpired between the parties, then filing the proceedings, drafting, attending courts, briefing counsels. Also, many things are there. Like in every day, we have hundreds of things to do. It would not be just one task. It would be managing different things. Like after coming back from courts, again giving updates to the client, again preparing ourselves for the next day matters. If anything, drafting needs to be completed. So it just keeps us on toes. The mind is always working. I must say dispute resolution entails many things. There are many aspects to look into it, and we do not restrict ourselves only to one forum. There are many forums available where we have to go and attend and accordingly prepare ourselves.
Okay. And as a woman, what do you think? Should women be pursuing this? Because corporate is a little on the lighter side work-wise, because you can sit in the office and work, whereas for litigation practice you have to run from court to court. So what do you think as a woman? How did you handle it? And do you think more and more women should pursue dispute resolution?
If I may speak honestly, Manaswini, and I would like to bring this to everybody's attention that it is difficult. Dispute resolution is very, very difficult for women, especially when they get married and when they are unable to give time, because dispute resolution involves a lot of time commitment. And after marriage, yes, it becomes difficult. Nowadays, I see girls are very, very enthusiastic to do the dispute resolution, and There are difficult times, but if you're passionate about it, if you're focused, if you're dedicated, definitely you can sail through it. If I may just share my story over here, if it can help somebody. I started my law after my marriage, and when I graduated, I already had a 1-year-old daughter. So for me, it was growing my practice as well as my daughter. And the family, and it became little smooth. Initially I had my issues, but because my determination was there, because my focus was there, and my passion was there for the practice, I could sail through, and here I am today. So it all depends on your passion. And yes, I would add one more thing, that work should be pleasure and not pressure. So one should realize that while choosing the field.
True, true. Absolutely. Thank you, Dipti, for sharing that story and also inspiring women, I'm sure, who are considering litigation but want to balance their professional and personal life. Centric. Mathews, what do you think are the skills or any specialized training or specific laws that students must know to be a part of intellectual property practice?
Well, you need to know your basic, to have a basic idea of what intellectual property is and what the various statutes are, for
Mhm.
starters. And apart from that, I think you need to have a good understanding of how it affects commercial relations. Why is it valuable? When you have a basic understanding of this, I think then the law starts making sense to you. Apart from this, I would not expect a law student to know, complete sections and regulations and rules, because I think none of us came out of law school knowing everything. So I think it's a little bit too far fetched for us to also to judge other law students on that basis of where we are today. So a basic understanding of the statutes, yes. A basic understanding of what the statute talks about and what it entails also is required, and also a good understanding of what is out there. So Padma talks about technology, right? And she also touched upon when there's an overlap between IP and technology. So you have AI today. The
Mhm.
natural correlation is, how does AI affect copyright?
Mhm.
So a basic understanding of this, I think that's a lot to do with the extra reading that people talk about, and law
Mhm.
schools keep harping about law students. I think
Mhm.
that much knowledge is a good foot to start off with, that is a fresher when you're entering the practice, and the rest of it you develop during the course of your time there. Yes, but once you enter into the practice, then your uptake as to how much you imbibe and how you apply starts being counted, because from then on, it's that which matters more than anything else also.
Okay, okay. Padma, could you shed some light on the basic laws, any additional training that students must have to enter into TMT practice?
Yeah, so technology law is not something that is taught in law school. You enter the firm and you learn. But two primary areas of law would be important. So you need to have a little basic ideas on IP. Not everything, maybe, at least copyright laws, like Matthew was mentioning. And another one is contract law. You need a very basic understanding. That's not just for technology law. I think for a lot of other areas of law, also a basic understanding of contract law is very important. But that these are just the areas of law I'm talking about. That apart, there are a couple of things I think if a student is interested in technology law should bear in mind. You need to be absolutely updated on what are the new technologies that are coming up. Another very important thing is the understanding of the client's need. At one point, Matthew was also mentioning the commercial understanding of it. So, what does the client need? Like, you have to not just understand. So, for example, if you're drafting any other commercial contract, you have to understand the traditional products that the client is selling. So, for example, retail products, etc. In technology, these are new products, new services that the client is coming up with. So you have to have the interest to understand the client's products. Unless and until you understand what the client is actually offering to their clients, you would really not understand their needs and accordingly advise the clients. And then after you understand the client's need comes the legal risk assessment. So legal risk assessment and how you manage the risk would only happen if you have clarity on what the client actually needs to go ahead with his business. So legal risk assessment is something that comes with experience. Once you have advised a few clients, you would know how to assess that. And your job is to let the client know on what best he can do, after which he would take the call according to his business. And generally, this is again not just for IT professionals. IT lawyers, I think a general drafting and communication skill is very important. Communication
Yes.
skill for any lawyer is very important. But I think along with communication skill, the drafting skill of a technology lawyer, how you bring about the client's needs
Yes. Yes.
to paper, it's very important.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Padma. How about you? What do you think students must learn before they start practicing in as a labor lawyer or employment lawyer?
So, as Padma had mentioned, I think the primary skill set is basically drafting and communication. So, whenever there's any contract drafting, you have to see to it that there aren't any loopholes so that you don't have to go to a disputes lawyer, in the first place. So, along with that, employment laws are very vast and there are lots of gray areas actually. So, this is where your case law analytical skills comes into picture. So, on a daily basis, we're like going through hundreds and hundreds of case laws and you have to advise the client that if this happens then this is how the courts have interpreted. So there's a lot of analytical skills as well, and
Okay.
this is where we remember in college we were learning so many case laws and we wonder ki, why do we need to learn so much of case laws and why do we have to interpret and analyze them. So this is where it comes in handy actually. So employment laws, there's a lot of judicial precedents and a lot of analysis which is involved.
And it's also evolving with the
Yeah, also
codes coming up.
exactly,
Yes,
the new codes coming up, and then a lot of the other present enactments are going to get repealed. So there's a lot of changes.
happening.
And another thing is labor laws are state specific. So the
Yes,
first thing
yes,
which you need to ask is where is your office situated? It could be different in Gujarat, it's different in West Bengal. Some states are pro labor, some states are not so pro labor. So that's another thing. It's very state specific. So it changes from, the entire country itself. It's different.
that's a very important point actually. Also, with work from home coming up everywhere, so that is also massively impacting the employment law scene. Yours is completely distinct, so just let us know what skill sets students must have before they embark into their journey as litigating lawyer.
So, yes, apart from drafting, sorry, of course, I believe that you should develop more of soft skills like communication, have patience, open to learning, keep an open mind, and acceptance of maybe little bit of failure in the beginning. All these things are very very important. People look at success in the beginning, or they feel, oh, I'm working for 1 month over here, but I haven't learned anything. But they should be patient and give themselves more time to understand, and eventually one will learn and one will develop in the field. And of course, as and when you grow, the more you will realize in dispute resolution where you want to excel more, like in alternate dispute resolution, or maybe in NCLT for, or in commercial litigation, corporate litigation, real estate litigation. But initial years, one has to be open to learning, keep your mind open, be patient, and just absorb as much as you can like a sponge, and then decide for yourself as to what you want to do in future. Maybe after 4 to 5 years you can start specializing in whatever is more interesting to you. So in the beginning, just concentrate on this, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Good to know that, Dipti. So this is basically open to all, this question. There are a lot of legal courses that are available these days to teach you multiple skills on various practice areas. Have you had your juniors take up any of these courses? And do you think these actually help? And whether you would advise students to take up these courses before they enter a practice area, or once they decide and just to upskill themselves, they should be doing it? Mathews?
So, I think this works differently for different people. There might be an instance where a student has an interest in IP law but may have discovered that at a later stage and not able to show so many internships. Therefore, he or she may need to do a couple of courses, write a couple of publications, maybe to show that interest in his or her CV. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it's not going to get accepted at an IP firm, right? to put it
Okay.
plainly. So then the courses become important. What courses need to be done? Obviously, there are courses from WIPO and other organizations which have a good backing, which would
Okay.
be pretty accepted and have a lot of weightage, I guess, for all
Okay.
of us who will be hiring people.
Okay.
On the other hand, I think there's enough material if a student already has a passion for IP law or any of the other areas that is there and has pursued that interest by doing internships, then I think there's enough material out there today on the internet that a person can read up
Okay.
and be able to upskill oneself without having to do any specialized courses. When I was studying 15 years ago, I did a course on cyber laws. Helped me because that wasn't a part of my regular curriculum in college.
Mm.
So cyber law was just developing at that particular point in time. So I said, okay, what is this all about?
Mm.
But to answer my question, I couldn't do an internship because there weren't any cyber law specific internships, right?
Mm.
And there wasn't a course in my curriculum which would help me address this question.
Mm.
So that extra course which I did from somewhere outside proved to be beneficial to enable me to understand what, or give me at least a gist or a taste of what cyber law was about.
Okay. Okay.
So you need to pick and choose how you're going to use these courses and materials depending on your CV, depending on what your passion is, and depending on whether it's part of your curriculum or whether you're getting an opportunity to have a taste of that particular law or not to understand it.
Okay. Would you say these kind of theoretical courses are better, or there are a lot of practical workshops that are being conducted these days by partners of law firms? Would you say those are a better way to go?
You need to have a mix of both actually, because the theory can only take you so far. But I think all of us would be in agreement that practically what happens on the ground in the practice of each of our areas is vastly different from what is written in that statute or in that book. But to apply something practically, you need to have a good standing as far as your theory is concerned.
Yes.
Therefore, I think it's just two sides of a coin. You can't go with one and not with the other. It has to be both.
A mixed bag.
So if you're going to listen to practitioners on YouTube or on any other medium, go ahead by all means. But do read up the theory in respect of that as well, so that that session makes more sense to you.
All right. Padma, would you say it is a good idea to listen to more of these practitioners talking about their practical experience and practical challenges that they face? So, are these webinars, say, or these sessions good to spend time on?
Yes, it certainly helps, but then that's not the primary thing, I would say. I mean, this helps in obviously adding on to what you already have learned. But as we were talking about courses, I think a little different. Obviously, you have to have your own interest, do your own study as well. But things like, for example, we don't learn GDPR. So it always helps. Again, if you have the interest, you can read up 1,000 articles. You can read up EC, European Commission web. You can read up about GDPR, the entire GDPR directive law, etc. on the internet. But then I think personally, if it's on your resume that you have done a certification course on GDPR, that really helps. So all of these are there. Like you listen to webinars, you do your own research. But in my opinion, a bit of certification course on which you don't already have the expertise, that really helps.
Dipti, as far as litigation is concerned, we generally do apply the laws that we study. And what happens is, I've noticed a lot of students, they don't read up the law, as in don't memorize the law as much as they should. They read it up, they understand the principles involved, but sometimes it also helps in memorizing few case laws, few sections. So, what do you think if a student wants to practice litigation, how important does this memorizing become?
Of course, it is important, and I feel the more you practice, the more it becomes easy to remember. And nowadays, even I am observing that they are more dependent on Google articles and they don't open the books and read.
Yes,
Which is what is hampering actually, because articles are somebody's interpretation. So I always, whenever I sit with my juniors or interns also, I definitely ask what is the source, and then I send them back saying, I want the section, where is the section, give me the supporting law, where is the case law, and then only we discuss it further. So they shouldn't be looking at giving quick answers, but they should be looking at giving proper answers with proper supportings. So, and eventually, as more and more you will practice, you will definitely remember these sections, remember the case laws. Because I must tell you, when you go and brief councils, they never say Supreme Court so and so year or say. They just take the first name of the judgment and say in that judgment this was
Exactly.
held. So it was
Exactly.
very, very important. So maybe the intent or the focus should be there to remember. And they will come to know the importance to remember only when they see practically how it is used in the fraternity. So,
Yeah.
so right now the practice is that we take the first name and say in so and so judgment it was decided. So
Yes.
it the exposure, I would say, more of exposure, more of practice, it will help them because ultimately they are also very young. They are getting exposed to all these things, and they should focus more on this. Yes.
Okay. Joyita, do you have to add anything to this?
Yes, so basically, like what Matthews had addressed it in the beginning, sometimes you have these short, quick courses, which you can, enroll and then kind of brush up on. For example, in my LLM days, my dissertation was on IPR. But then somehow, I did not start off with practicing in IPR. And so when there was kind of like a requirement, in our law firm, I asked the partner, could you please give me some work related to IPR? So that at that time I joined this course under FICCI. So it was like a 3 months brush up kind of a certification course, and there was an exam at the end. So it helped me brush up on the basic laws. And then there are some workshops and then seminars, etc. So once you're eligible and you've passed out, you can join those seminars and workshops. So it not only helps in knowledge building, but again, a little bit of networking as well. So sometimes these short, quick courses also really do add value.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, does the organization matter where you're doing the courses from? Because there are a lot of startups who offer these courses, online courses and upskilling courses for lawyers. So do you think those are the ones that people should resort to or should stick with the traditional entities?
Personally, I think you need to do a little bit of due diligence as to who's offering the course, and you should be fine.
You mentioned networking. So I wanted to ask, is networking really important for lawyers, even if they are part of a law firm? And how do you build up on it? How do you leverage that skill?
Yes, so networking is very important. We've been made to realize that as soon as you want to kind of move up the ranks, especially in a law firm, it's very important. And not just for adding to the revenue of the firm, but also kind of as soon as you start networking, you meet different people from different facets of law. Somebody can either be an MD or CEO or just a regular employee, and you get to know different aspects which you don't really get to know, just by staying in the four walls or something. So networking is important for knowledge building as well as, kind of like, stretching yourself and learning from others, of course. Yeah.
Mathews, what are your thoughts on networking in general and as part of a law firm?
So I think I agree with Jayeeta. Networking is important, but you have to understand at which stage it is important too. A lawyer's profession, when you start with, it's a very long profession, right? If you actually calculate, you enter approximately at the age of 23, and pretty much by the age of 70 or almost, which is 60 plus years. Okay. And in these 60 plus years, you climb up the ladder if you're in a law firm, or you climb up in your ladder in your career in general. When you start out, I think, especially in a law firm, a lot of your work is very limited to the project in front of you and the execution of it. But as you go up the ladder, more responsibilities come onto you. The soft skills start mattering a lot more. And along with these soft skills, networking with people also starts mattering. So it's somewhere in the mid level and the level above that networking actually kicks in as a full-time basis, right? When development of client, business development, and such kind of things start being bandied around, these terminologies are bandied around that stage in your career. So For starters, maybe when you start your career, it's not so important, but as you go up, it starts becoming more and more important. And after a while, I think it occupies a majority of your time as well, apart from the execution of it. Therefore, learning the skills associated with networking is very, very important. There are different ways to network, obviously, and that's important to understand what your style is. So, what applies to Padma or what applies to you may not apply to me. My style might be completely different. Discovering one's style is also important when you're networking, because I don't think you can copy anyone in respect of this. It's basically something that you say, okay, that's wonderful. Maybe I should adopt a couple of things from that particular person and that particular style of networking and see if it works for you or not. It may or may not work for you, but at the end of the day, you will have your own unique style of how you network and how you get to know another person. It's, I think, a better terminology than networking, getting to know someone better. And I think at different stages, you need to pay emphasis on different things.
Okay. So, as a law student, should students also engage in networking?
One can develop one's skills, obviously. Nobody stops you
Okay.
from developing your skills from an early age. But I
Okay.
think the application of that skill may come at a later stage.
Okay. See, is it more important when you're litigating?
Yes, of course it is. So, as rightly said by Jayeeta and Mathews, networking is important, and it will all depend as to where, who, how they want to network. So, initially, maybe one can network within the circle, legal circle, with the legal colleagues, the other side, the other lawyers, the counsels. That also helps. And then later, as you grow in your career, networking would also help in other ways. So, for the fresh graduates, networking is not commercially looked at, but it would also look at how you are going around the circle, how you are going around and talking to people in courts, in councils, with clients, I would say. So it is important, and one has to identify as to where, what, how to do the networking.
Padma, your thoughts?
Yes, indeed, I agree with everybody. Networking is very important. I think at what stage and what purpose? What is your purpose of networking? So I'll agree with that networking as a student is very important to share your ideas, exchange ideas. And at a later stage, what Matthew was mentioning for business development and other purposes in the firm, networking has a different purpose. I, through my personal experience, can say when I was doing my master's, I was an international student, and there were several other international students around. When I started my master's, the ideas I had after discussing several different things on several different topics, starting from politics, religion, human rights, privacy rights, law, everything, it just changed me as a person, my thoughts. So, even if not for anything else, to refine yourself as a person, refine your thoughts, refine your legal understanding, refine your social understanding, networking, I think, is generally very important. Then, like Matthew was saying, at a later stage, it would have a different purpose.
True. Agreed. So basically, we have understood what each of your practice entails. And the idea was to help students understand the practices and prepare themselves for particular practice. And the quicker they decide, the easier it is to shape the journey towards the goal. So, one last question to all of you. I'll start with Matthews. What is it that you look at while hiring a student into an IP practice?
Well, first thing I think is passion towards the particular area of law.
And how do they showcase the passion?
No clear answer for this one, but I guess they have to, obviously there's a filtering process and which comes through your CV. I think your interest and passion can be seen in it. I think that's quite evident. If a person has done 10 IP internships and out of that 10 internships and out of which 6 are IP related, then I clearly can see that the person has an interest and a passion to enter into that profession, right?
Okay.
So I guess that is one of it. The second is obviously an attention to detail, which is much required. Drafting skills or writing skills. When you're dealing with international clients, a lot of your writing becomes very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big plus if that skill is there in you, but it's one that can be developed as well. If you don't have it, not to worry, you can develop it. Okay. And I guess lastly, the biggest thing that I would maybe look at is a high level of discipline in how a professional conducts oneself, because that is as important as all the other factors out there.
Yes.
In a team, when you're working with other people, this is a much required skill or asset, which if you have, you will really go up in the future. Because it's not just entering the profession, right? It's also looking after and ensuring that your team grows with you. So I think that is as important as entering the profession. So I think this too is important. We often see things which do not bode well with the basic culture or ethos of what we as a practice follow. And that's something that we should not, or rather as a law student, you should try to take out of the system and not get into. So I think by and large, these are a couple of skills or things that one would look at when entering into the profession, or one that I would look at when hiring people.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mathews. Joyita, big thought from you. What do you look at when hiring a fresher?
So I think for any area in law, I think English proficiency is quite, important, especially when it comes to like the areas regarding employment laws. As I mentioned, there's a lot of, analytical skills which comes into picture. So if you are good in English, it's a plus point. And the legal language, once you start getting into this legal profession, you'll develop it gradually. Like as Matthews also said, it's not like, if you don't have it, you're done. So you develop that gradually, but then English does play a huge role actually. So yes, and I think the most important thing which anybody requires is kind of like grit. Even if it's litigation or if it's non-litigation, you just have to keep at it until and unless, you get better and better.
Thank you, Joyita. Padma?
Yeah, so I think, it's important. Comprehension and communication again is very important. I would see if the person, like Matthew was saying, you learn on your way, but then you need to have the thirst to learn, And again, somebody who is coming for technology law, whether the person is updated, the person has read up what is happening on technology law. When you speak to the person at the first instance, you can figure out that the person is trying to, keep herself or himself updated. So that thing is there. And also another thing that is important is, while we are saying learning, the thing of learning and unlearning, and then this new learning that comes up, So that's also a very important thing that every student must bear in mind, that go through this process. And when you decided to work as a lawyer, it's not like you have studied law and you're done with all your studying. You have to keep studying till you practice law. So it's like learning for the rest of your life. You have to be ready for it, and be patient. Like Dipti was in one of our conversations, she was just mentioning, you have to be very patient. You cannot just want to, jump stages and reach to the top right, after your first 2-3 years of career. You have to be very patient, learn, and actually accept this gradual move. But I would look for the thirst of knowledge, the interest, even if the person doesn't know at that stage.
Okay. Dipti, we will hear from the most experienced. Yeah.
So as I said, during my times, law was an last option one used to look at. I must say nowadays law students also look at as a last option dispute resolution if they are. So the first thing I look, whether they have the passion, they have the zeal to do dispute resolution, to do litigation. Then definitely the English proficiency, the language, and the confidence. So if these things are there, then I am there for them to take it forward. That much confidence I have in myself. But then I need these 3-4 factors from the candidate, and then the rest work is mine. I will do it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Dipti. Thank you, Mathews. Thank you, Padma. Thank you, Jayeeta, for joining us today and sharing your stories, your insights for law students, your experiences that I'm sure they'll gain from and will help them decide what practice they want to enter. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Thanks.